trying to learn more and more.
And we do know that he is being checked out by medical officials to determine the extent of his injuries, if any. It is possible that he was just grazed. It is possible that it was more than that. This comes on a day when we were expecting potentially news on who he was going to announce as his vice presidential pick. You and I spoke by phone this evening to learn about your reporting, and we have statements here from some of the top contenders. Senator Marco Rubio has tweeted on X, "We are praying for the president and all of those attending the rally in Pennsylvania today." Doug Burgum has tweeted, "Please join Catherine and me in praying for President Trump and his family and everyone attending the rally today." J.D. Vance, senator from Ohio, saying, "Everyone join me in praying for our President Trump and everyone at that rally. I hope everyone is okay." That is a sentiment that is being echoed across the country, across the world, I am sure. But this is the worst possible scenario. This is, as you said, political violence unfolding in front of us.
It is something that has not happened, so thankfully, in recent presidential cycles. As a reporter, you're almost sometimes attuned to how Secret Service has a constant presence, but luckily it has not been something you think about, that you're on somehow the precipice of violence when you're covering a rally for President Biden or for former President Trump. I'm getting text messages from people who were at the rally, and of course we're going to be careful here, but there is concern among those who were there and those who were talking to those who were there about whether some people in the crowd might have been hit as well or affected in any way by the violence that has unfolded today in Butler, Pennsylvania. Former President Trump raising his fist in defiance. This is a moment for Trump supporters, as they talk to CBS News tonight, where they feel like he is determined to carry on in this race, but they're still just stunned and shocked. When a president or presidential figure is facing an assassination attempt, the nation is on the edge. Even if they dislike that person deeply on a political level, you think about that moment on CBS News in 1963 when Walter Cronkite took off his glasses after President John F. Kennedy was assassinated. Thankfully, in this instance, former President Trump, based on the statement from the campaign and Secret Service, is in a safe place, is in somehow being treated for the injury. But you could see blood visibly on his face based on CBS News' footage and on photos that have come out of this event. He is walking there. He walked, raised his arm several times as he made his way off the stage. But you are watching history unfold. Tragically, it involves violence this time.
And it is a reflection of our time. Emotions are running high, and this is something that so many people worried about on both campaigns. These are highly charged times in our political reality, and these are large events. These events are meant to be large. They're meant to draw a lot of people, and these are the types of events former President Trump, as you said, likes to conduct. I want to recap for everyone who just might be joining us now. Former President Trump has been escorted away from a rally in Butler County, Pennsylvania. This is after shots rang out on the scene. He ducked, was escorted away quickly by the Secret Service, bringing his hand to his head. It is unclear if he took a direct hit. It is unclear if he was grazed, but we do have a statement from his campaign. I'll read that now. It says, "President Trump thanks law enforcement and first responders for their quick action during this heinous act. He is fine and is being checked out at a local medical facility. More details will follow." I also want to follow up with a statement we received from the Secret Service that says an incident occurred the evening of July 13th at a Trump rally in Pennsylvania. The Secret Service has implemented protective measures and the former president is safe. This is now an active Secret Service investigation, and further information will be released when available. But the question remains, how large was this incident? How did this assailant get in or was able to access this area, given how heavy the security is, and how many people were shot, if anyone?
And what makes this different is it involved what allegedly appears to be the active discharge of a firearm, if not multiple firearms, but at least something grazed former President Trump, bloodied his face in some capacity. There have been assassination attempts not only on President Reagan. You think back to when President Biden got into the Senate. He was elected in 1972. Soon after, in 1974, Gerald Ford becomes president after Nixon resigns. Ford has multiple assassination attempts against him when he's president of the United States. But in recent history, we haven't seen firearms involved. This is what makes this moment so drastically and unfortunately different. You remember when George W. Bush was president, someone threw a shoe at him during a news conference, angry about his conduct and his handling of wars in the Middle East. But this involves a firearm. And you have former President Trump as someone, he grew up in New York, in Queens, Jamaica, Queens. He was a student of history based on my conversations with him growing up. He thought about the presidency. I've spoken to him at length about former President Abraham Lincoln. In 2016, I had an extensive interview with him where we talked about Lincoln. Lincoln, of course, killed just down the street here in Washington, D.C. at Ford Theater. But this is a campaign event. I mean, this is something that is not just happening in an isolated event with a president. This is so unusual to have a former president running again for the presidency. It's something we really don't see in the past century in American politics. And we talk about guns in this country, and it's a time when gun control is on the minds of Congress, but this has a historical, tragic element, and we're still trying to learn more information. Absolute chaos, though, on the ground in Butler, Pennsylvania, based on reports from those who were there, texting me and talking to CBS News, worried about other people who might be victimized by this attack. People who are members of Congress I've texted with in the last 5 minutes say they're very worried that other people might have been grazed or even shot and facing serious consequences medically at this time.
And more statements are coming in. Members of Congress, of course, speaking out. House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries has written on X, "My thoughts and prayers are with former President Trump. I am thankful for the decisive law enforcement response. America is a democracy. Political violence of any kind is never acceptable." These are the sentiments being echoed here across the aisle at a time like this, of course, where everyone is coming together. Everyone is going to unify. I want to bring in Caitlin Huey Burns from Milwaukee, where she is getting ready for the Republican National Convention. Caitlin?
Adriana, good to see you. Yeah, we're here where thousands are going to descend upon Milwaukee in just a couple of days here. Donald Trump is supposed to be nominated for the third time as the party's leader here. I can tell you that just on Tuesday, I was covering a Trump rally in Miami. And just to give you an idea of what these kinds of events are like, the security is, of course, extremely tight. You have to go through magnetometers to be able to get in. But it is also important to note that these rallies take place outside. There are thousands that come, up to thousands that come, and they're outside in vast spaces. People are there all day, usually waiting. The other night when I was there, it was a night event. People had been waiting for hours and hours and hours outside to see him. I should also note that there have been children present. I've noticed more children present at the rallies that I've attended covering the former president. This, as Bob just described, of course, is a shocking event. There are no words. I've been texting with members of the former president's team. They have sent us that statement, which you have read, and so we are keeping updates on his condition and on the condition of anyone else on his team. As you saw also, which is prevalent at these rallies, is people are invited to stand behind him. And so the idea, we'll obviously be reporting on what kind of security measures were taken here. But this is just significant because Trump really prides himself on these rallies. They have become frequent in his presidency, but he is expected to come here very shortly, in just over 24 hours, to be here in Milwaukee. We are outside the security perimeter for the convention, but security is already very, very tight here, and so we are waiting to see further precautions being taken.
Caitlin Huey Burns joining us from Milwaukee. Caitlin, we'll check back in with you in a minute. Bob, do you have new reporting?
Yes, I just got off the phone with someone who was backstage with former President Trump at the rally, Congressman Mike Kelly of Pennsylvania, a Republican. He just spoke directly to CBS News. I asked the congressman if I could quote him on air. He gave permission. He said he was backstage watching Trump He said he was waiting there with a few other lawmakers to see if former President Trump was going to begin his speech. He said everything was calm. And then he said, quote, a couple shots rang out. Shots just rang out. And everyone saw the president go down. He was watching from just a few steps away as Secret Service agents fell on top of former President Trump. And he said everybody just dropped who was in the stage area, people around me. He says, quote, I believe a lady who was next to me was hit. Other people were hit. This is a quote from Congressman Mike Kelly of Pennsylvania, a veteran House Republican who was at the event with former President Trump. He said it took a long time for security to clear it up. He's worried that other people were hit by the bullets. He believes they were bullets and that this was some type of shooting. He's not sure if there were multiple shooters or not, but he said security kept everybody tight. He saw the former president raise his hands multiple times, but he said it was shocking to be at the stage. He said they weren't really clear, but he believes there were at least a couple shots, if not many, 4 to 5 shots, based on his ear of what happened while he was on stage, just watching former President Trump. You can see the former president right there, kind of at the start of his speech, puts his hand up, everybody goes down, and Congressman Kelly said people just fell to their knees, but were watching Trump as the Secret Service agents went on top of him.
New reporting from Bob Costa, from someone who was there, someone who was on stage, likely feet away from all of this transpiring, Congressman Mike Kelly of Pennsylvania. We're going to bring in Face the Nation moderator Margaret Brennan, who's joining us now. Margaret, what's the latest you've heard from your sources?
Well, Adriana, obviously, this is such a moment of high tension on the political stage in both parties. Our country, though, apart from the politics, has also been at a very high threat level, the highest, in fact, on many fronts. Terror front, concern on the national security stage in many different ways, including homegrown violent extremists. You've heard the FBI director testify about this repeatedly in recent months. We don't know yet who might have taken these shots at the Republican nominee, but we do have the statement from his spokesperson saying that he is fine. He's being checked at a local medical facility, and they'll have more details soon. First responders very quick. I do want to echo what our Scott McFarland reported, which is clearly a major security failure. You can see in the video we are playing back for you that the former president, the 45th president, was able to stand, wave, move freely, but that blood was visible around his ear area. The Secret Service, we know, has implemented more security procedures around him. I've been texting with individuals, lawmakers and family members of theirs who were there, trying to understand if everyone else in office is also safe. So far, I've been hearing those lawmakers are secure. That is the reporting to date from those I've heard back from. But we are going to continue to make calls, Adriana. I just want to put that in broader context, that we are in a heightened threat environment. We knew that. We have heard that repeatedly from the FBI. Warning and warning and warning recently in front of Congress. Homegrown violent extremists who could be radicalized inside or outside this country. We just don't know what the motivations here. Obviously, the context within a political rally is key, particularly in a battleground state like this one, at this moment, on the cusp of what is basically a week-long extended media focus on Donald Trump.
And Margaret, we're getting new reporting in that says that the gunman has been neutralized by the Secret Service. We're going to bring in former DHS official Sam Vinograd, a CBS News contributor who can tell us what she's been hearing. Sam?
Certainly. I connected with a senior government official who did indicate that the former president is safe, but I want to talk a little bit about what is happening in real time right now. This is an intelligence and operational failure. The Secret Service and the FBI are deeply aware of the heightened threat environment that Margaret was just articulating, both as it pertains to foreign terrorist organizations and individuals inspired by those foreign terrorist organizations, as well as domestic violent extremists with anti-government sentiment. Because of that, the Secret Service and FBI are consistently monitoring intelligence to try to mitigate threats and enhance operational security. It is clear.
Wix gives you the power of AI to build the website you need with full business functionality.
To be, and it is also clear that the operational measures to protect the president were insufficient. Now, we believe, my sources are telling me that this is still an active threat stream, even if the perpetrator has been neutralized. We do not know, and the Secret Service and FBI are likely investigating whether this individual acted alone and or whether there are any ongoing threats associated with this perpetrator to other targets, the president's family or others. So that will be actively investigated, whether this is an individual threat or there are other active threat streams associated with this individual. Now, from an operational perspective, the U.S. Secret Service, as well as other law enforcement entities that protect other kinds of government officials, will be upping their operational posture to ensure that their protectees are safe and that this does not spur any kind of retaliatory action by Trump supporters or individuals inspired by these activities to try to engage in malicious activity of their own. So this is, to put it quite simply, one of the most significant threats that we have seen materialize in this country in decades, and our law enforcement community is upping their operational posture to try to mitigate threats while this active investigation is underway.
And Sam, as you said, this is a catastrophic failure. We're getting new reporting into the newsroom now that says 2 law enforcement sources say there is no longer a threat. The suspect is either dead or in custody. That is unclear. Secret Service agents did engage the individual. So now we know the Secret Service did engage the individual involved. That person is no longer a threat. We don't know if that person acted alone. We don't know what the overall scope of this was. We don't know if multiple people were hit or the extent of former President Trump's injuries. All of this is still unclear. And this is happening as thoughts and prayers are pouring in from all across the aisle as well as the world. Benjamin Netanyahu has tweeted on X. He posted on X, "Sarah and I were shocked at the apparent attack on President Trump. We pray for his safety and speedy recovery." We also have new reporting here coming in from Ed O'Keefe. Ed, are you with me?
I am, Adriana. We
Go
can
ahead, Ed.
Convey that, and as we've been talking about this, it's important to point out that while this has happened in Pennsylvania, we wonder, where was President Biden? We're told now he was in church. He normally goes to Mass on Saturday evenings, especially when he's in Delaware. He's at his Rehoboth Beach, Delaware home. Came out of Mass shortly after the incident occurred and has been briefed by his Homeland Security advisors, by the Homeland Security Secretary himself, in a briefing that included his Chief of Staff and other senior advisors. Let's point out again that the Secret Service has said in a statement that the incident occurred tonight in Pennsylvania. They've implemented protective measures and the former president is safe, but they say it's an active Secret Service investigation and further information will be released when available. There are a large number of Secret Service, other federal, state, and local personnel here in Milwaukee, which is set to begin hosting the Republican convention with a series of events tomorrow ahead of the formal nomination of Trump on Monday. We've got no word from convention organizers yet, which is understandable as they're still trying to sort out exactly what's going on, but there is a carefully choreographed schedule that is set to begin on Monday. The ATF is also helping the Secret Service with this situation. They're deployed here in Wisconsin along with other federal agencies, and we'll see if that makes any big changes to the security posture here. One thing we're waiting to hear about, Adriana, in addition to the condition of the former president, his whereabouts, is whether the president will have anything to say about this tonight. We know that the reporting pool that travels with him has not been cleared for the night as they normally would be after he goes to church, which suggests that perhaps the president will have something to say later tonight about what transpired in Pennsylvania a little while ago. So again, while the former president is safe, lots of unanswered questions about his condition, how this happens, how the president and his campaign may respond to this beyond the statements that are coming from Democrats and Republicans about the concerns about violence and what effect it might have on the convention that is set to begin here Monday in Milwaukee. Adriana?
Set to begin on Monday, but we don't know if that now is going to change. There's so much that is up in the air. Will the convention begin as planned on Monday? What will be changes to security at that convention, at the Democratic National Convention in August? How is this changing the campaign, changing security? This at a time where emotions are running high on both sides in both of these campaigns. There has been plenty of scrutiny on former President Trump as well as President Biden. And yet they are still out front, trying to be as close as they can to the public, to rally support, to rally voters and make their cases to the American people. But this is a historic moment. We are told, as you heard Ed said, that the president is being briefed. We know that he is speaking to the director of the Secret Service, Kim Cheadle. We're also told that he's speaking to the Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, to get a sense of what is happening, of the scope of the condition of former President Trump. We are told that former President Trump is safe, but we don't know exactly where he is or what his condition is. We're told that he has been seen by a medical professional, and his team issued a statement themselves explaining that the president thanks law enforcement and first responders for their quick action during this heinous act, and he is fine. It says that more details will follow. And this is where we are, trying to gather as many details as we can. Our Bob Costa has gone to so many of these events. He's covered these rallies. He understands really just the feeling in the air, Bob, of when you're there and there are so many people. And, you know, President Trump supporters, are known for how passionate they are. What does it feel like when you're actually there? What is that atmosphere?
There are people who follow former President Trump's rallies across the country, almost like some people follow musicians. It has often reminded me, as a Grateful Dead fan, of how people would have the fervent following for the Dead. A lot of people have the fervent following for former President Trump. They'll go from city to city, arena to arena, because there's a sense of jubilation among his political supporters that the rally has a convening power for those who are like-minded to come together and support former President Trump. I've seen him everywhere, from the South Bronx to California to Texas to Florida. He goes everywhere, arenas, outside. He's unlike most politicians. He focuses on rallies as the place where he can really bring his people together. So, and there have been incidents in the past of some unruliness at his rallies, protesters, disruptions, but nothing like this. And even though it's always Secret Service protected, this is something at an entirely different level. Someone discharging a firearm, it appears to be, at the former president and perhaps at others there.
I'm being told that we have new material coming in, Bob. I'm going to play that to see what it shows. Do we have that material? New video from the scene? While we get to that, while we look at that, we'll bring in Margaret Brennan with some new reporting.
I've just been trying to make phone calls to make sure everyone is safe. The Senate candidate, Dave McCormick, who was in that front row, has confirmed that he is safe at this rally, but there are reports of individuals individuals in the area who did have contact here of some sort, injuries of some sort. So I'm just trying to call lawmakers to confirm their whereabouts. But what you can see, and as you have been seeing, our inboxes are just exploding with emails from Democratic lawmakers, the Democratic governor of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, coming out condemning political violence, the governor of Michigan, Democrats very quickly to condemn this act of violence, to distance this from their political party in any way. There is no suggestion that there would be a connection, but they are very clearly trying to, out of the gate, say that there is no place for political violence in our politics at this moment of such high tension. An important message to be sent at this moment, just 4 months out from a race that was already quite tense. And we're seeing world leaders. We're seeing the Hungarian prime minister, the Israeli prime minister, others describing this as an attempted assassination of the former president, current leading candidate, not just for the Republican nomination, but potentially another 4-year term.
And Margaret, I'm just getting an email now from CBS News contributor Richard Esposito. This says that according to multiple state, local, and federal law enforcement sources, the shooter who fired at Donald Trump was, quote, neutralized, as we have reported, by U.S. Secret Service agents. This was most likely from a counter-assault team. Multiple spectators were wounded and injured, at least one in critical condition. This is all based on initial reports, but what is happening now is we're starting to piece together what is it that exactly transpired. This is an active crime scene.
It is, and our reporters who follow every movement that the candidate makes, Jake Rosen, Olivia Rinaldi, were there. They saw it happen. They heard it. You can see from that very rough video that they dropped to the ground. And by the way, political violence is not necessarily a norm in this country, but let's put this in the context of not just the moment we're in, but what we, as reporters, have been preparing for, which is the expectation that in this election cycle, there very well may be political violence. And our reporters do train for that now. That is something you do typically when you go overseas to cover an election, but now our reporters are doing that to cover these rallies, to cover political conventions. And so we are happy to know that those two reporters are safe. But as we're seeing from the video they are feeding in.
I just watched one of the videos Jake Rosen sent in, and he's talking to attendees who are clearly traumatized. And one gentleman, I'm sure we'll have it soon here at CBS News on Air, had a shirt that clearly had blood on it in some capacity. And so you're seeing reporters doing their jobs for CBS News and other outlets, but you see those attendees just rattled by the experience of being part of a violent event.
Because even if there was an intended target, as there appears to have been, to have a shot like that, multiple shots at a very well-guarded stage, there were people in the area who were also hit, which suggests, and if you could hear it, it didn't sound like an automatic weapon, but there were others that were hit in the area. And we are being careful, and when we are reading these initial reports and editing, I would have to say, some of the graphic detail that we are getting from some of our reporters on the ground.
And we're just getting a new update that from our reporters, Olivia Rinaldi and Jake Rosen, and I'm sure you're getting this update as well, that people are being escorted out. Jake Rosen spoke to an emergency room physician who saw a man shot in the head with brain matter on the ground. That's according to an ER physician performed CPR, but he did not. He's dealing with that at this moment. That's Jake Rosen, to be clear, Jake Rosen, our reporter on the ground in Butler, Pennsylvania, has spoken to an emergency room physician who saw a man shot in the head with brain matter on the ground. That's based on Jake Rosen's reporting. Jake looked at the camera after the incident, saw blood coming from Trump's ear in some way, his neck. Jake was on the scene. He was our reporter on the scene. Scott McFarland, who has been on the ground doing excellent reporting as well, heard, in his view, 8 to 10 explosions based on his reporting. He said the crowd ducked based on his reporting notes, hit the ground when a popping sound occurred. To Margaret's point, it was a popping sound. The press was under the risers. They saw Secret Service swarm to the left of Trump following the incident, saw helicopters come in a few minutes after. That's based on the-ground reporting from Olivia Rinaldi, Jake Rosen, and Scott McFarland, who are in Butler, Pennsylvania.
And we do have that reporting that at least one person has been injured in critical condition. And it is still early. A lot more details will come out. People's conditions change. They go up, they go down. We'll learn more about, hopefully, President Trump's condition. We are told he is safe, but we don't have the details. Was he hit directly? Was he just grazed? We're now being told that Vice President Kamala Harris has also been briefed on the incident. We know that President Biden has been briefed by members of his cabinet. Now Vice President Harris has been briefed. She was also addressing crowds today at her own rally, as was the First Lady. All of these figures out on the campaign trail as this campaign heats up. And this is happening, this political violence, at a time when there is such tension in the country, yet people still are going out to support their candidates, still taking those risks and going through all the security measures needed to be there, to see the democratic process play out. And now we're seeing really the cost of those risks. Clearly a catastrophic failure of security. The Secret Service is investigating. This is a live investigation, and many questions will be asked in terms of what went wrong. Who was able to enter this area? Were they able to shoot at this area from outside the security perimeter? We still don't know. It's still early. We're still just getting initial details in, but the Crime scene is active. We are told by our reporter, Olivia Rinaldi, who was there, that crime scene tape is up. The area has been cleared. We have heavily armed security personnel who have entered this fairground, essentially is what it is, in Butler County, Pennsylvania. And this is a part of this battleground state that has supported former President Trump twice. They went for him in 2016, again in 2020. So this is somewhere where he enjoys a great amount of support. And of course, for something like this to happen, chaos ensued afterward. This is what we saw on the video. This is what we're told by our reporters there. We now have some new video. We're going to play it for you right now. Oh my gosh.
We're okay.
This is video from She follows President Trump. She's been to countless rallies like this. And there's our Scott McFarland under the bleachers, as he told us he was. And this is a moment where all of the training that we've all been through in this country, of all ages, for what to do when there is, when you hear shots fired, everybody gets down, ducks, and tries to figure out what's going on. Bob?
As we watch this footage of the attack as it took place, you see Rachel Scott from ABC, our reporter Scott McFarland in the bleachers. There's chaos in the press area near the stage. Former President Trump raising his hand in defiance as he's escorted off stage after the incident. We just got a statement
the blood, you can see.
for CBS News, which just received a statement from President George W. Bush, the former president, said, quote, "Laura and I are grateful that President Trump is safe following the cowardly attack on his life, and we commend the men and women of the Secret Service for their speedy response." So as Margaret said, Democrats and Republicans coming up with statements tonight showing solidarity at this American moment of attempted violence and possible assassination attempt of former president also weighing in.
And the reason I underscore what our colleague Scott McFarland was saying in terms of a catastrophic failure of security is this was not unexpected. That is the point. The Secret Service was already on edge. All U.S. law enforcement.
And you've been reporting for weeks that there's been a sense of on edge throughout the world, but especially at U.S. military bases?
Well, certainly. But even just our Pat Milton was reporting earlier this morning, ahead of Milwaukee, any mass gathering these days is of high concern because of the threat environment.
And you saw how quickly they rushed the stage. They were there on edge, like you said. We actually have new cell phone video that shows what appears to be the shooter down on a rooftop. Now, this is consistent with information we're getting from federal sources saying that the gunman possibly fired from an elevated position. Let's take a look at this video. It appears that we're seeing someone on a roof there. Potentially, this is someone who was outside the security perimeter. I'm going to bring in our reporter, Olivia Rinaldi. Olivia, what can you tell us? We've been getting some of your video in the newsroom here. What did you see? What did you hear?
Adriana, it was a terrifying moment. Trump was probably a few minutes into his remarks, and all of us were waiting for a vice presidential announcement. Instead, we heard successive loud noises, loud bangs that were playing. It sounded like shots. We immediately took cover. I pulled out my phone and I started recording. You can hear my voice there, pretty shaky. You could start to hear Secret Service also through Trump's microphone trying to get him down on the ground. We were down for probably, it felt like a lifetime. It was probably like 30 seconds or so. And then I popped my head up and I could see Donald Trump surrounded by security and Secret Service and pumping his fist. And they were trying to get him off the stage and he was resisting them a little bit and putting his fist up in the air. After that happened, they cleared him. We could hear the motorcade leave right away. Our security personnel was with us as well. We had all gotten down. We saw Scott McFarland next to us, and a couple of pieces of equipment also fell down with him as we got down on the ground. Chaos ensued after that. I was looking at the bleachers to the left of where Trump was, and you could see people cleared out of there. You could see some blood on the bleachers as well. And I watched police unfold yellow crime scene tape and put it there. it was shocking and it was scary. Reporters that I talked to, I mean, we're at these rallies multiple times a week. I was just at one in Doral, Florida. It's the unimaginable, but it's something we prepare for, and it's something that, as Margaret was saying, security personnel prepare for. But overall, just a very, very tragic event that happened here today.
It's something you can prepare for, but never really be ready for. Olivia Rinaldi, thank you for that report from the ground. Margaret, this is at a time, as you were saying, where the threat has never been higher.
Exactly, and on many fronts, foreign and domestic. But I wanted to underscore and come back to when I said this wasn't unexpected, I meant because of that threat environment. But I wanted to go to the specific language that was in a report our Pat Milton put out earlier today. She obtained the joint threat assessment that was in preparation for the RNC that's just about to get underway in Milwaukee, that large Republican gathering. And at that time, law enforcement said no credible specific threats were identified at the time in the assessment, but there was a warning that the RNC could be viewed as an attractive target due to the symbolic nature of the political convention. So they were putting out a general warning to be on alert in Milwaukee, where a lot of those Secret Service agents are concentrated right now. The Secret Service that was with the 45th president and Republican nominees, who we're looking at ushering him off stage. In that photo, you can see him with his arms around those officers encircling him. They are with him at all times, his detail. But I'm just underscoring here that the FBI, Secret Service, DHS, the Milwaukee Police Department, Southeastern Wisconsin Threat Analysis Center, all of them right now out in Wisconsin are on high alert because of this political violence, domestic violent extremism, which means somebody radicalized here at home, and the terror threat. So this is an environment where we are all on alert. We have to learn more about that shooter who has apparently been neutralized, as we've been reporting. They'll want to understand his motivations, any connections he might have, whether he was a lone wolf. Any other details, as our Sam Vinograd and others who are operators can give better context to. But I just want to make sure we put into context that there was a warning that went out as early as this morning about the potential for violence at the Republican convention. As we can expect, there will be a similar warning at the DNC when it gets underway in August.
A warning, and here we are. Political violence unfolding at a political rally in America. Scott McFarland was there. He was ushered out by security personnel. We have him now on the phone. Scott? Scott, if you can hear me, go ahead.
What am I doing in front of him?
He's not getting anything on the phone.
Can you dial into that same number?
We've lost Scott McFarland, but I'll bring it back to our discussion here and summarize what we know so far for anyone joining us now. Shots have rung out at a rally in Butler County, Pennsylvania, where President Trump was addressing a crowd of thousands, something that he does day in and day out. These events have happened so much. The security protocols are typically so tight. Metal detectors, wands, bomb-sniffing dogs, Secret Service in uniform and in plain clothes. And we saw, as soon as what sounded like firecrackers rang out, Secret Service personnel rushing the president, removing him from the area. His fist goes up. He puts his hand to his head, and you can see in the close-up photos of the president blood on his face. We have been told by the Trump campaign, as well as the Secret Service, that the president is safe. We're told that he was examined or is being examined by medical personnel. We don't know where he is at the moment. Our Scott McFarland, who was on the ground, reported that he saw a helicopter arriving on scene. Bob Costa is here with us.
Scott McFarland has been doing exemplary work along with our team on the ground, since he can't join us just now at the moment. To reiterate Scott's reporting and our reporters on the ground, Scott says he heard between 8 to 10 explosions, popping sounds. He saw the crowd duck. He hit the ground when he was sitting under the bleachers. He heard this popping sound. The press was under the risers, most of them around that area, very close to the stage. They witnessed the Secret Service swarm to the left of Trump following the incident, climbed on top of the former president. Then they saw helicopters come by a few minutes later. They did see Trump head toward a motorcade. Helicopters arrive in some way. Our reporters on the ground, Olivia Rinaldi and Jake Rosen, just to underscore what we know, this is an active crime scene. They are setting up tapes still, talking to bystanders, witnesses, blood seen on the bleachers, blood seen on the T-shirts and pants of those leaving this rally, people being escorted out. There was a lot of anger, confusion in the air. Jake Rosen spoke to an emergency room physician who was there, who says he saw a man who he believes was shot in the head.
And Bob, we have that video. Let's play it right now.
I heard the shots. I thought it was firecrackers to begin with. Somebody over there was screaming, "He's been shot, he's been shot." So I made my way over. I said, "I'm an emergency department physician. Let me help you." The guy had spun around, was jammed between the benches. He had a headshot here. There was lots of blood, and he had brain matter there. And so I got him. There's a helicopter coming in to get him. I got people there really helpful. I got him up on the bench.
Shot that you saw?
Then I did CPR, did chest compressions as well as I breathed for him.
One person. And there we have an eyewitness account from a man who says he is an emergency room doctor and rushed in to help a victim who had a gunshot wound to the head. We are also getting news from the Associated Press reporting that the shooter is dead. And
from our affiliate,
KDKA.
Our affiliate,
Yep.
KDKA, that the Butler County District Attorney told our political reporter, John Delano, that 2 people are dead. That's the shooter and an audience member. So the suspect we referenced as already being neutralized, add to that an audience member. One bystander at that rally
And
has lost his life.
And former President Trump injured, still trying to figure out the exact number of those who were potentially injured beyond Trump.
That's right. That's right. We have people on the ground. As you can imagine, we're all trying to get in contact with our reporters, either because there's so many phone calls being placed or because of security protocols. It's hard to get signals out. They're struggling. A lot of us, you see us texting because that is, frankly, easier than getting people on the phone. But there are a lot of people who went to that rally there, as you were just talking about. To go into a rally like that, you go through levels of screening. So when you were showing that rooftop, I would assume that is at a distance from the rally, that was not someone who was in the confines of the area where the rally was taking place. We don't know that yet. We need to get that kind of context from law enforcement. But I imagine that's why our producers in the control room put up that video for everyone to see.
And like you said, from our affiliate there in the area, we are being told that 2 people are dead. The shooter, as you said, Margaret, and an attendee of this rally. I want to bring in Sam Vinograd, a former DHS official, a contributor to CBS News. Sam, where do you think this investigation is right now? What are officials on the ground doing? We may have lost Sam. Sam, can you hear me?
So just to reiterate, we have Butler County District Attorney telling KDKA political reporter John Delano 2 people who were at this rally are dead. That includes the shooter, according to the Butler County DA, and an audience member. Former President Trump appears to have been grazed in some way by a firearms discharge.
And we don't know how many other injuries there may be.
No, but our reporters, Jake Rosen and Olivia Rinaldi, Jake Rosen has provided interviews already about people leaving the rally with apparent signs of either being injured or being near people with apparent injuries, blood on their shirts, blood on their clothing. These are people who were Trump supporters attending the rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. Former President Trump is reportedly in a safe space, according to his campaign. President Biden, briefed on this, as has the vice president.
And I should say, I believe we showed that rooftop because of the reporting we had that this was from a distance and an elevated shot.
That it may have been, yeah.
But we should say, in the environment we are in, it is not difficult to get a weapon that you can get through a metal detector. not all weapons. As we talk about those 3D printed guns and other kind of weapons necessarily will be detected. And so we should give that caveat. But that rooftop we keep showing, I'd love to get more detail or context to that.
And no security is 100% tight. We go to these events, supporters go to support their candidates, politicians who put themselves in front of crowds. This day and age, we all know the risks. But as you said, Bob, former President Trump loved these types of events. He loves these types of events. He likes to be as close to the people as he can.
His hand in the air as he leaves stage, he's on his feet. This really has, you can see him there ducking down. Something hit his head in some way. He ducks down. It really reminds any person who has looked at history in the past 40 years of 1981 when President Ronald Reagan was shot at the Hilton Hotel just outside by John Hinckley, trying to assassinate President Reagan. Reagan ducked down into his motorcade, went ultimately to George Washington University Hospital, just a few blocks from CBS News here in Washington. And there was so much confusion in the wake of that shooting. Reagan wasn't fully aware of how he had been shot, if he had been shot. In some way was saying maybe he can just go back to the White House. Ultimately, they decided to bring Reagan to George Washington University Hospital. These decisions happen sometimes in a nanosecond that can have enormous consequences for global politics, American democracy, a presidency. We do know the President Biden, has been briefed. Former President Trump, his campaign says he is safe. And KDKA has been told by the Butler County District Attorney that the alleged attempted assailant, the shooter, is now dead. The shooter is dead along with a participant in the rally. And that coincides with what I heard from one of the attendees on the record. Congressman Mike Kelly of Pennsylvania told me just a few minutes ago on the phone, it was mayhem. People were ducking down onto the ground. There was concern that many people were being hurt. And
our Scott McFarland is outside the rally, outside where this all took place. Let's bring him back in. Scott?
Can somebody check it?
Go ahead, Scott. Can you hear me?
I hear you just fine. It's Scott McFarland in Butler County.
Scott, go ahead. You're on the air. What is the latest that you're hearing, and what can you see from where you are?
Okay. Sorry for the imposition. We're having some bad cell phone signals here, and it's part of the response that we're also kind of pinned into a parking lot right now. Over the past hour, we've seen law enforcement and Secret Service just move people back further away from this scene. It is quite clearly an active investigative scene. I also noticed 2 helicopter landings, a minimum of 2, about 2 to 5 minutes after the former president was ushered off site or ushered off the stage. We know there are people in paramilitary gear, sidearms, moving through this area. Secret Service is here, so is local police. But a good chunk of this crowd, estimate hundreds of people, still remain near the site, sharing stories, some of them sharing embraces and tears, and trying to watch what happens next, even from a distance. And everybody we're talking to has a similar story to tell, that they may have mistook it for firecrackers. It was that type of quick pop and the same decibel and the same tone and tenor of a firecracker, but everybody recognized within short order it was gunfire, and they hit the ground. We spoke to a lady who was in the front row, just steps away from the former president, who also described seeing a teardrop-style form of blood on the side of his face and a little more around his ear. And she heard him say, "Got to get my shoes," to Secret Service, she says, before the former president was ushered off the stage. In Butler County, this is a fairgrounds. This is a farm fairgrounds where there are events that have people not of this size, but of quite a large size. There are rafters here. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of chairs. I'd estimate the crowd here as thousands today. Nearly all of them, though, are now gone.
And as you were speaking, Scott, we saw photos of former President Trump up close, and you can see what you just described and what that eyewitness described to you as almost a teardrop type of bloodstream coming down his face, yet his fist was raised. He is defiant. He is defiant. There is that photo for you to see. Yep. We are also getting more and more statements pouring in, speaking to just the heightened level of emotion right now. We're hearing from former Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who, of course, her husband was attacked at their home. She wrote, as one whose family has been the victim of political violence, I know firsthand that political violence of any kind has no place in our society. I thank God that former President Trump is safe.
There's anger, though, from the Trump side. This is a new social media post from Chris LaCivita, who is one of the top campaign advisors to Trump. He said they tried to keep Trump.
I hear nothing.
They tried to keep Trump off the ballot, and they tried to put him in jail, and now you see this. So you see a politically charged response from Chris LaCivita. The top
taking it right to where Democrats are trying to prevent it from going. You saw former Speaker Pelosi issue a statement talking about the political violence her family had experienced and condemning it in this context and saying how glad she was that former President Trump is safe. You have the expectation that the White House will soon issue some kind of statement. We know that both the vice president and the president have been briefed on what's been going on. They themselves, of course, have Secret Service detail, and you have to imagine that there's an alert level across the board right now. But one of the things that we do need to pull back, that is just incredibly incendiary at a moment of incredible sensitivity to say something like that, to allege whatever they means. There's no context to who they are who are trying to keep them off the ballot, but they tried to put him in jail, and now you see this.
Trump's top campaign advisor in many ways.
Exactly. Those words have extreme weight. But if you, just to separate topic, very much related, the language around this campaign has been about us versus the system, me versus them, that all the legal cases against Donald Trump he claims are politically motivated to prevent him from re-election. By alleging that there is a connection to this attempt on his life, it would escalate that. That is, Pennsylvania State Police put out a statement. Adriana, if you want to.
We have that right here. Pennsylvania State Police confirming everything that we have been reporting, that shots were fired at former President Donald Trump today during his rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. It says that they don't have an update on former President Trump's condition, but we know from the Trump campaign, from the Secret Service, both have said that the president is safe. But we also don't know what safe means. Safe could be a lot of things. We did see in the video and the photos after this incident that the president had his fist in the air, that he appeared to have some blood on the side of his face. We don't know exactly what happened, if he was grazed or if it was worse. There we have that picture. His ear there, the top of his ear is red. But like you said, Margaret, now is a time to bring down the temperature and assess what happened, ensure that everyone is safe. Already, one person who went to this rally to support their guy is dead. That's the reporting that we're getting from our affiliate KDKA. You know, I'm just thinking about who that may have been, you know, what mindset they were in as they were going to this rally. Like you said earlier, Bob, people attend these events, you know, like they follow them across the country. His supporters are so passionate, and what can change in an instant?
It's so true. And the tension in this country has been so high. There has been such a concern about domestic violent extremism and political violence. So cooling tensions, cooling tempers is what you would hope leaders would do in this dangerous moment, because this, as you're alluding to there, these are passionate people who showed up at that rally. It's hot outside. They're standing there. They went through security. They are there because they love Donald Trump. And they are now being told by the head of his campaign that there is some kind of alleged connection between what just happened to the candidate and whoever they are. In that, I'm referring there to top Trump campaign official. I want to read to you what I'm getting text from some of our reporters on the ground who were saying, Olivia Rinaldi saying there was a palpable feeling of anger towards the media after this happened. The people in the crowd turned toward them. They started shouting, telling us it's our fault. It's a very tense environment. So what law enforcement will now do is try to prevent any kind of retaliation.
Exactly. And the agency right now at the center of this, On the scene is the Secret Service, which is conducting a live investigation. I want to bring in CBS News contributor AP Smith, who is on the phone with us, a former Secret Service official. Can you hear me?
Yes, I have.
Go ahead. What are you hearing from your former colleagues about what may have transpired? And based on your training, what are agents focused on right now?
Well, obviously, securing that scene and beginning an investigation is the utmost important, but that follows only making sure that the president, his former president, is safe and that, he's now in hopefully a medical facility where things can be looked at. So there's probably multiple things going on at the same time. It looks like from the standpoint of what we saw, the video and the pictures so far, that the Secret Service reacted in the way that they're trained to do. The counter-assault team, which you saw, the tactical team come up on stage, they're there to cover while the agents working the president, either renders medical aid to him or evacuates him completely to get him out of harm's way. So all of that looks like it occurred in the way that it should.
And AT, your former colleagues, the Secret Service trains for this. I mean, I've done reporting at their training facility here outside of Washington, where there is there's a site that's a replica of a city where they train in cars to see if there is an attack on the president. What do you do? Where do you go? How quickly do you respond? And what you describe shows that training kicking in. You see agents rushing the president off site. You see agents in plain clothes clearing the crowd. This is now a crime scene. We have video, cell phone video, showing someone who appears to be potentially the assailant, possibly on a roof. AT, talk to us about the security protocol when it comes to the area outside a perimeter and an open air event like this. It's one thing to usher people through metal detectors and wad them down, but you can't control the sky. You can't control, parts of these areas that are outside the perimeter. How does the Secret Service account for that?
Well, and that's what the investigation probably will end up showing us. How far away was this assailant? What sort of access did he have? As you said, the security in these kinds of events, whether they're indoors or outdoors, or really, if you think of it, there are three concentric circles. There's an outer perimeter, a middle perimeter, and the innermost perimeter, which is closest to the protectee, the former president. So it will be interesting to see what the distances are here and, whether or not something nefarious occurred that they may yet have to get to the bottom of. But to your point, the Secret Service agents train constantly for this kind of an event at the Raleigh Training Center in Beltsville, Maryland. There's a mock sound, there's mock motorcades, and obviously they practice these kinds of events. And from the video, you can see how they responded, and that is the essence of what their training is. And not only that, you saw how close the former president's limousine was to the stage. So part of that is the equation as well, to be able to not only secure him, render what medical aid he may need immediately, which is probably why they stayed there a little longer than you would normally think. Instead of just grabbing him and rushing off stage, they wanted to make sure that anything they might do in that regard wouldn't further injure him. So they want to make sure that...
I want you to hold on the line for just 1 second, because we are getting word that President Biden has issued a statement. I want to go to Ed O'Keefe, who has that statement with him. Ed is in Milwaukee. Ed, go ahead.
Adriana, the president has issued a written statement saying, I have been briefed on the shooting at Donald Trump's rally in Pennsylvania. I'm grateful to hear that he's safe and doing well. I'm praying for him and his family and for all those who were at the rally as we await further information. Jill and I are grateful to the Secret Service for getting him to safety. There's no place for this kind of violence in America. We must unite as one nation to condemn it. CBS News can also report that the president will be making a statement in person or on camera later tonight. It is unclear where exactly, but he is at his beach house in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. And we're seeing word that the motorcade has left that house. So he may be going to a facility there in Rehoboth Beach that can be used for unexpected, unforeseen events like this when he might have to make some kind of a statement. It's unclear, but we'll wait and hear. We should also point out there have been statements tonight, rare ones, from George W. Bush condemning this violence and saying he too is relieved to hear that former President Trump is safe, and former President Barack Obama and his wife Michelle saying much the same. It's not often that you get former and current presidents making statements on anything, but obviously in a situation this grave, it is completely understandable. What exactly the current president might say and how he would speak to this tonight and this attack on his bitter political rival remains to be seen, but it's going to be arguably one of the most challenging statements any sitting president's ever had to make at a time of this apparent, just ongoing sort of cleaving of the country and the nastiness of its politics. Adriana.
A nasty time in politics and a horrific day in America. Thankfully, former President Trump is safe. We're being told by his campaign as well as the Secret Service. The Secret Service, of course, their security is at the center of this. I want to bring A.T. Smith back into this conversation. A.T. is a former Secret Service official, and we're getting new information, A.T., that this is being called a sniper incident and that this person was outside of the perimeter. Tell us what it means when something's labeled officially as a sniper incident. What does that mean to you, and especially for agents working this on the ground?
Well, if that does turn out to be the case, then obviously it would be someone with a very long-range rifle, similar to a deer rifle or something like that, with a long-range scope. So if, in fact, someone was in a place outside of that perimeter and were able to do that, it would have had to have been quite a distance. Going back to what I said a moment ago, the normal security plan is going to involve 3 concentric rings of security, an outer, a middle, and an inner perimeter. If this person somehow made their way beyond that and was able to do this, that will be a point within this investigation, to try to determine what happened and why it happened, quite frankly.
And A.T., how large are perimeters for these types of events? I mean, for someone to have been able to breach the perimeter, have been posted potentially outside of it, and have the precision that they may have had. All we know is we see some blood on the president's ear. How wide is the perimeter usually?
It really depends on the venue. If there's natural barriers between, sort of the outskirts of the perimeter and a farther distance, and we're talking about, natural obstructions, then that is going to play a role in how big the perimeter becomes. It sounds like, if what we are hearing here is correct, and this person was in fact neutralized, there was a counter sniper team there whose responsibility it is to be on the lookout, to constantly monitor these long-range potential threats. And if, in fact, that is the case, and that's what happened, and they did neutralize him, it sounds to me like the counter-assault team, the counter-sniper team reacted correctly. And again, if they've killed this suspect, then that's part of why they're there.
It is now the top of the hour, and I want to recap for anyone joining us the hard-to-believe incident that has recently transpired. Former President Trump, while addressing a crowd of thousands in Butler County, Pennsylvania, ducked as he heard, and the crowd heard shots ring out. The former president was swept away by Secret Service agents, as we're seeing right now in the video. And even after he ducked down, you heard those shots continue. We are being told that the assailant has been neutralized, has been killed, and our local affiliate reports that another person, an attendee of this rally, has also been killed. We have reporters who were there on the ground, who've spoken to eyewitnesses who describe, of course, a chaotic scene. One person conducting CPR on a victim who that person said was shot in the head. We're going to slow this video down so you can see it in detail. The former president, addressing crowds, raises his right hand toward his ear and drops down toward the ground. It looks like he ducks down toward the ground. You see a motorcade leaving the area. There he is. on a hot day in Butler County, Pennsylvania, where, there are folks behind him, there are folks in front of him, there's security and Secret Service that jump in hardly a second after this happened. I mean, they just appeared out of nowhere. Scott McFarland was there and saw all of this unfold. Scott, we're going to bring you in. Bring us back to that moment when you heard that noise, what you thought, and what happened in this scene.
It was uniquely jarring. Again, it had that same sound of fireworks, that same tone, that same volume, and that same rapidity, a series of about 8 to 10 of those. It took just a few moments, though, for us to realize it was something much more sinister than that. There would be no place for fireworks at an event like this. I was up on a press rafter facing the former president from above, and those of us on the rafters jumped below to get beneath them, all kinds of equipment and tables falling on top of us to shield ourselves. And we could look out and see other members of the crowd, of which there were thousands here today, doing the same, kind of face planting into the ground, into the grass, up against the bike rack barriers that surrounded all the chairs here. We could see after the former president was moved off the stage, some group of law enforcement in paramilitary gear rush as a unit to what would be the former president's right side of the stage. From our view, the left side of the stage, about 90 seconds after. Soon after that, we saw 2 helicopter landings, helicopters that almost immediately lifted back up. Behind me are cars that are in line to leave that haven't moved over the last hour. It may not move. It seems that they have stopped the departures from the scene. This is an active investigation, no doubt an active criminal investigation, and the crowd that didn't get out immediately is here now for quite a while. They're in their cars, air conditioning running, with the exits either closed off or slowed down. It's like this fairgrounds kind of in the middle of nowhere in Butler County, Pennsylvania. It's a populous county, but it's in a remote site, the type of site where you could have all the open space you'd need for hundreds, if not thousands, of rally goers. There's only a one-lane road in certain stretches that gets you in or out of this area. It's going to be a very slow departure for those who are here. But we're only a couple hundred yards from businesses. There are some manufacturing businesses. There are some car dealerships on what is County Route 68, which is within sight of the fairgrounds. And there's a law enforcement presence there as well, Adriana.
Like you said, that area now under lockdown. Anyone who is still within the area has to stay put. A very rural part of the state, a one-lane road, as you said. Scott, thank you for that eyewitness account. We're going to also show some video that our reporter Olivia Rinaldi, who follows President Trump, shot on her phone.
Oh my gosh. Okay? Yes, don't. We're okay, we're okay, we're okay. Oh, you're ready, on you. Move! Sit down. Lay down. You okay, Scott?
Yes, sit down. Everyone sit down.
I can't see him. Where's our security?
We're going to bring in now someone else who was there, Senate candidate David McCormick, Republican candidate from Pennsylvania. Mr. McCormick, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Please describe what you saw, what transpired, and where you were when all of this happened.
Yeah, well, I was in the front row. President Trump was facing the audience, and I was to his right in the front row. And he had just announced me and invited me to come up on the stage. And I was starting to get up on the stage, and then he said, "No, I'll call you up in a little bit." And about a minute or two later, there was a number of shots. The popping sounds. It was like 7 or 8 shots, and it wasn't clear exactly where they were coming from. It felt like they were coming to President Trump's left as he faced the audience. And, it was just mayhem. There was the Secret Service immediately knocked him down and jumped on top of him. And then they got him to his feet, and they were surrounding him. And you saw this fifth come out of the group, where, I think making it clear that he seemed like he was okay. I don't know if he was actually hit or not. There looked like there was a little bit of blood, but his fist came out as, I guess, a sign that he was okay. And then to my back, there was some commotion, and I looked over my shoulder. Everybody was, the moment the shots happened, everybody got down on their knees or down on their, laid down. And unfortunately, someone to my rear in the bleachers had been hit. And the people around, it looked like it looked like a large man. People were trying to administer first aid, and there was blood everywhere, unfortunately. And eventually, within a few minutes, the police came and carried that person out, presumably to get the kind of emergency care they needed. But it was obviously a very frightening moment. It was clear that the president was under attack, and it was clear that people were being hurt, and it wasn't clear whether there was one shooter or two shooters or whether they were done. And so you can imagine it was a crowd of 15,000 people. It seemed about 15,000 is what the law enforcement people had told us. And so you can imagine what kind of panic there was with this kind of horrible thing happening.
And David, stay with us. We just played video that showed that moment where everyone was crowded down. And in this crowd of thousands, everyone is just still, hardly moving as they react to what are the sounds of gunfire. People thought they were fireworks at first. Then it became clear that it was gunfire. From your vantage point, how far were you from the president? You were in the first row. And could you tell if he was grazed, perhaps? I know you said you're not sure if he took a direct hit, but describe for me from how close you were what you could tell happened in terms of his potential injuries.
I really couldn't tell. I did see just a little bit of blood as they were going around him, and then, as I said, I saw the fist come out. But I couldn't tell the nature of his injuries. It all happened in the blink of an eye. And initially, I wasn't focused just solely on the president when the shots started happening. And it seemed from where I was sitting, the shots were opposite from me. But I think there's also a possibility the shots were coming from two sides. I'm not, I don't know what's been discovered thus far, but I'm not sure it was just one gunman or two gunmen. But clearly it was, it was an attack and an assault on his life. And, the Secret Service almost acted instantaneously once the shot started and were encircled him.
Exactly. You see them encircling him. Clearly, their training kicking in. They're almost creating a perimeter around the former president, shielding him with their bodies. David, you describe, one of the former President Trump in front of you and then a person behind you who was hit. So these bullets could have been coming from any direction, or did you have any sense of where they were coming from? I know that you said that you weren't sure if they were coming from one place.
Right. Well, it wasn't clear to me. From where I was sitting, it felt like the bullets probably came from across the other side of the crowd, because if they missed the president, then they would have hit somebody behind me or, someone in my part of the crowd. So I thought I heard shots coming from that direction, but others thought that they heard shots coming from other directions. And, I was a military person, so one of the things, it's not always easy to tell where the shots are originating from. So, it's, they weren't huge sounds. They weren't booming sounds. They sounded like almost a small caliber weapon. In moments of chaos like this, you always have to be careful you don't jump to conclusions. But I think they felt like they came from the president's left, from where I was sitting.
And David, these events are loud. So for these sounds to pierce through the crowd and all of the noise, everyone reacting quickly, getting down. I mean, we've all been through lockdown training, unfortunately. Tell us a bit about the scene with the victim that you saw. Where did it appear that this person had been hit, and how severe were those injuries?
It was really hard to tell. It was a lot of blood, so it wasn't clear where the bullet had struck him and how how severe the wound was. He looked to be unconscious, but even that's not entirely clear to me. But it was obviously a lot of blood, so I'm assuming he was pretty severely wounded, and I'm hoping and praying he's okay.
2-minute warning for Biden.
David, stand by. Thank you so much for that account. You were there. You were in the front row. I'm here with Bob Costa, who's been, as we're sitting here, reporting to you. Bob is next to me on the phone, making phone calls quietly to all of his sources to find out what happened. Is the former president okay? We're being told President Biden is going to be addressing the nation in minutes. We're standing by for that. You see the shot that we have up, waiting for his arrival. Bob, what's the latest that you've been hearing?
The latest remains the suspect has been killed, one dead in the shooting at Trump's rally. We're still trying to learn more from those witnesses who were there about what exactly happened on stage in terms of a firearm being discharged. Did it hit something and then ricochet onto Trump? And then you see there's confusion about exactly what happened in terms of the injury for former President Trump. This is a major moment for President Biden, not only the president of the United States, becomes just days before the Republican National Convention. And presidential moment, if there ever was one, in the 2024 presidential campaign. We are soon to hear from the President of the United States, who is at his weekend residence, a place he loves returning to for peace and quiet, Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. Here's the President.
I've been thoroughly briefed by all the agencies in the federal government as to the situation, based on what we know now. I have tried to get a hold of Donald. He's with his doctors. Apparently he's doing well. I plan on talking to them shortly, I hope, when I get back to the telephone. Look, there's no place in America for this kind of violence. It's sick. It's sick. It's one of the reasons why we have to unite this country. We cannot allow for this to be happening. We cannot be like this. We cannot condone this. And I want to thank the Secret Service and all the agencies, including the state agencies, that have been engaged in making sure that the people and we have more detail to come relative to other people maybe injured in the audience. I don't have all that detail. We'll make that available to you. I may be able to come back a little later tonight, but we'll put out a statement if I'm not able to if it's not convenient for you all. But the bottom line is that the Trump rally was a rally that he should have been able to be conducted peacefully without any problem. But the idea that there's political violence or violence in America like this is just unheard of. It's just not appropriate. And everybody must condemn it. Everybody. I'll keep you informed, and if I am able to speak to Donald, I'll let you know that as well. But so far, it appears he's doing well, number one. Number two, that there's thoroughly investigating what happened to anyone else in the audience. We have some reports, but not final reports. And every agency in the federal government, I'm going back to my phone to speak with the federal agencies that are being put together again to give me an updated briefing. Has anything happened? They learned any more in the last couple hours. So thank you very much, and I hope I get to speak to them tonight, and I'll get back to you if I do, okay?
Mr. President, do you think it was an assassination attempt?
I don't know enough to. I have an opinion, but I don't have any facts. So I want to make sure we have all the facts before I make any more comments. Thank you.
Are you worried, President, safety?
That was President Biden addressing the nation after former President Trump was presumptively shot at a rally in Pennsylvania. Shots rang out at this rally. We are told the potential shooter is dead. Someone in the crowd is also dead. But what really stood out to me from this address was the president called former President Trump Donald. I'm trying to get a hold of Donald. I hope he's okay. All of the kind of political vernacular has kind of faded away, and now he's talking human to human. He said Donald is with doctors. I'm trying to get a hold of him. He, of course, condemned what happened, condemned political violence. He said, quote, "It's sick."
He also said he's trying to learn more information. We do know that some kind of firearm was discharged, and we're trying to learn about how what exactly happened. We have heard from Donald Trump Jr. as well, just in the last few minutes, sent by an aide. Don Jr. was not there. Donald Trump Jr. not there. But he said, quote, "I just spoke to my father on the phone, and he is in great spirits. He will never stop fighting to save America, no matter what the radical left throws at him." Okay, we don't know about the intention of this shooter or motivation in any way at this time. That's a quote from Donald Trump Jr., the former president's son. President Biden, in his brief remarks from Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, a place where he likes to enjoy some peace and quiet on the weekend, not this weekend, having to speak out about violence at a political rally. He called it sick.
We have Major Garrett also on the line. Major, what do you take away from the president's remarks, and what are you hearing from your sources?
Well, first of all, everyone, I just got to Milwaukee. I got here about 5 minutes ago, right off the airplane, and was shocked to hear the news out of Butler, Pennsylvania. The president's remarks are all the nation knows, and he's at the top of the pyramid of all the available information. I can tell you this from Milwaukee. I just got off the phone with Reince Priebus, former Republican National Committee chairman, former White House chief of staff to Donald Trump, and now currently the chairman of the Republican National Convention here in Milwaukee. He said three things. One, he's been on the phone with those close to former President Trump. The former President Trump is well, does not expect to change anything about the program here in Milwaukee, will come in here, if anything, more energized, more raring to go. That is a word from Reince Priebus about everything that is planned for the 4 days to commence tomorrow here in Milwaukee. I asked Reince Priebus, do you expect the security situation here in Milwaukee to change as a result of the events in Butler, Pennsylvania? He said, not yet. He said, but I will probably get a briefing in the not too distant future. There are a lot of other priorities ahead of that right now, but he's expecting that something might change. I can tell you this, having just gotten here to downtown Milwaukee, already the standard lengthy multi-block security perimeter is being erected as I speak. Blocks are being blocked off all around. That standard protocol for Republican or Democratic national conventions has been for many, many years. What we don't know is, starting tomorrow, will the plans that they had going into this event in any way be tightened as a result of the violence in Butler, Pennsylvania, and the very near miss on former President Trump? Reince Priebus did not have any insights into that. But what he does know, and what he was able to convey to me, is former president is well, expects to be here all 4 days in Milwaukee, and wants the program to go as planned. That's what I know.
We now have a doctor who was on the scene and treating people, Dr. Jim Sweetland. Dr. Sweetland, what did you see, and who did you treat? What were the extent of the injuries?
Yes, hi. Thank you for having me on. I was in the stands about 30 feet away from an individual that received a head wound, a headshot. He was on the lower portion of the same stands. I was looking at the graph when I heard what sounded like firecrackers going off. I saw the Secret Service then swarm over Donald Trump, and somebody near the location of this individual cried out, he's down, he's hurt, he's been shot. And so, being an emergency department physician, I just went into muscle memory and went down there to assist him.
And how did you assist him, doctor? And what did he look like? What were the extent of his wounds? It sounds like this was a male. What can you describe for us?
He's a male. He appeared to be mid-30s. I believe he was Hispanic. He was wearing a Trump rally shirt. He was shot in the head. His body was twisted around and wedged between two benches that were in the stand. He was not breathing. He did not have a pulse or at all. He appeared fairly gravely ill. With the help of 3 other people, I was able to get him back up on a bench, and I administered CPR. I breathed for him, standard CPR, and also did chest compressions. There was a lot of blood that was spilt on the stands where he lay, as well as brain matter.
Doctor, did he appear to have any family with him, or did he seem like he was alone?
He seemed like there was 2 family members. I continued to try to resuscitate him. two Pennsylvania State police officers approached and tapped me and said, "We got him." They're big guys. They lifted him off the bench like a rag doll. They thought I was family. I said, "No, I'm an emergency department physician, just trying to help." And they gathered up two family members and they left.
Doctor, this is Margaret Brennan in Washington. I am sorry for all that you have gone through. Thank you for sharing your account. I wonder if you can share with us any detail of what you witnessed in terms of whether you saw what the injury was caused by. Was there impact from the bullet? Or, as we're seeing rumors of, was there shrapnel? Was there glass that sprayed that also caused injuries in the area?
Yeah, no, this was a bullet wound that was in the right temporal area above the right ear. The bone was elevated, and there was profuse blood and excuse me for saying this, brain matter coming there. So it really was a bullet wound, an entry wound. Looking at him, I did not examine him beyond performing CPR. I did not see an exit wound.
Did you, doctor, have any visibility into others in the area who might have had injuries? And could you tell from the distance you were at what the former president was injured by? We can see in images that there was blood, but we don't know if, for example, he had a close call, if this was shrapnel, if this was glass, or do you have any way of knowing?
I have no way of knowing the injuries to the president. I was focused entirely on that poor individual that was shot. And I once you're in that mode, you really don't pay attention to surroundings. I did look briefly for any guns or weapons in the area where he was or around where other members of his family were. I didn't see any weapons, no guns, no knives, nothing.
Could you tell the distance at which the shot was taken? Did you see the origin of the shot?
I couldn't tell. Again, I'm not a telemetry expert, but the way the wound entered, it was, I think, from trees or from a distance, it seemed. And sometimes it looked like an assassination. They'll shoot the individual in front of them so they then can shoot their true target. I just thought of that as I was dealing with this individual.
Mm-hmm. Doctor, since you are a medical professional, the fact that the former president was able to stand up, we heard him say, get my shoe. He had a trickle of blood, but he had his arms around others. That would, as we are hearing from these statements from his campaign, suggest that he is fine. What was it that you think took him off his feet?
I don't know, because I did not witness that. When I turned around, the Secret Service were already piled on him, and my attention was entirely on this individual, so I could not really assess the president how he was walking off the stage. The first thing I said when I got up and I turned to my friend said, "Did Trump walk off the stage?" And he said, "Yes." And so to me, that indicated that the wound was not severe, at least at that moment.
Doctor, you were there as an attendee. Tell us about the level of security required to enter these fairgrounds.
It was quite tight. I mean, it was a good hour to get in. There were an hour to get in the line to go through the metal detectors. I happen to have artificial knees that always lights up metal detectors, and they had to wand me after I got in, and they confirmed that I had that. It was quite tight. I felt pretty secure there. Okay. Also, where my vantage point in the stands, I could observe I could observe what I consider to be SWAT snipers with silencers and different guns.
I think we just lost him.
The reason, Adriana, that description of the distance is so important is it gets to the security protocols. Clearly, the security perimeter was not broad and wide enough. If, as it as we were just hearing from our eyewitness, it took over an hour to get through those metal detectors and screening, and someone was able at a distance to take a fairly clear shot that close to a Secret Service detailee.
I just got a text from the former president's son, Donald Trump Jr. He's been on the phone with his father. He was not at the event. He says, as we've been reporting, his father is doing fine. He's doing fine. That's from Donald Trump Jr., the son of former President Donald Trump.
I understand our political reporter, Ed O'Keefe, is standing by. I believe he's in Milwaukee. Ed, are you there? Can you hear me?
That's right. Margaret, I can. Can you hear me?
I can. Ed, we already knew that Milwaukee was in a heightened level of preparedness security-wise because this is a large gathering. All large gatherings these days are highly scrutinized, but for the RNC, there's high security. Do you have any sense on the ground if protocols are changing or if any of the Secret Service you're seeing there has any indication of what went wrong?
We are, during the day, in the hours before this, we observed local police and other police agencies that get sent here to assist Milwaukee local police in dealing with things like traffic control, crowd control. They were out and about sort of reviewing the lay of the land, getting a sense of it. In the hours since then, we haven't seen a few blocks from the convention site any real change in police posture. But we know that around the time the former president's campaign rally was beginning, coincidentally, the so-called security sweep, or the thorough review of everything inside the convention perimeter, was beginning, led by the Secret Service. It was supposed to continue into the overnight hours. We'll see now if it is potentially extended a few hours or not. And we'll also see, as Major was reporting earlier, whether there's any change to events that are scheduled to begin tomorrow. I know of one, for example, convention attendees from the 50 states and the territories are invited to a large outdoor music and festival area on the shores of the lake here for a big event tomorrow night. We'll have to see if that is changed in any way, given that it is an outdoor event, like the campaign event in Pennsylvania. But otherwise, hotels here are beginning to fill up. Preparations are underway. One other piece of politics that's worth conveying, Margaret, while we're waiting to see what exactly Republicans decide to do with their convention, the Biden campaign let it be known moments before the president spoke that the Biden campaign itself is moving tonight to stop all television and digital advertising across the country to acknowledge this moment, and is working to ensure that all outbound communication to voters, in essence, that's fundraising appeals and advertising, is stopped. To mark this event. That is a notable pause, given that upwards of $50 million were supposed to be spent this month on that kind of advertising and other outreach.
Well, Ed, what you're saying, just to put it in context, this is already affecting the operations of a campaign 4 months out from Election Day, but it is also a choice, a deliberate choice being made by the Biden campaign to say this is not the moment for politics. It was very quickly that they got the president on air. Tell me what you thought about the language chosen by the president and the thinking in the White House and trying to tamp down any kind of perhaps retaliation.
When the current president speaks about his predecessor and bitter political rival, I had never heard him before refer to him in that way, as Donald. To Adriana's earlier observation, I would surmise, based on years of tracking him, that that's exactly what he was trying to do, sort of tamp down the politics of this and try to emphasize the humanity. Donald, after all, is a man, is a human being, is a father, is a grandfather, is someone who's followed and adored by millions of Americans and people around the world. So the fact that he very clearly said from the beginning, I'm trying to talk to Trump tonight myself, is notable, and we'll see whether or not that conversation happens. And the president didn't rule out speaking again tonight to try to help quell concerns across the country. That response, different to the one that Trump made in the moments after this, though perhaps understandable. And we'll just have to monitor here in the coming hours how these two leaders, and perhaps former presidents, Margaret, consider speaking out or doing something to try to quell the obvious rancor and violence that we've seen today and could potentially see over the next 3.5 months as the campaign continues.
Yeah. And Adriana, apologies if you've already reported that, but our Pat Milton is saying we now know the weapon used was a rifle. that the shooter used that. And in that video we were showing earlier of the downed individual appeared to be wearing fatigues. You couldn't see the weapon. And we don't know that that's the shooter, but we believe that that video does reflect that was the eliminated threat Secret Service took down.
That's new information.
And confirmation from Pat Milton as well, from 2 law enforcement sources to her. The shooter was outside of that cordoned area, as we've been discussing. It was a couple hundred yards away from former President Trump. It was on that elevated structure, shot and killed by a member of the Secret Service counter-assault team. As Margaret said, the shooter's weapon was a rifle. New information from Pat Milton.
In other words, a skilled shooter to be able to take a shot like that at a distance with a rifle.
And to Ed's point, the current president is talking about unity, trying to cut through the politics and talk about the humanity of the situation. The vice president has also issued a statement. She says that she's been briefed. She says, Doug and I are relieved that he is not seriously injured. We are praying for him, his family, and all those who have been injured and impacted by this senseless shooting. She continues and says that we are grateful to the United States Secret Service, first responders, local authorities for their immediate action. Violence such as this has no place in our nation. We must condemn this abhorrent act and do our part to ensure that it does not lead to more violence.
And new reporting from Nicole Skanga, a CBS News reporter, that it's still being determined if former President Trump was hit by a bullet or from debris, some evidence he might have been cut by the glass. He's surrounded by teleprompters, which are plastic or glass, depending on the event on stage. Different elements are on stage as well. Again, from Nicole Skanga at CBS News, the suspect was on a shed. Again, that elevated platform outside the security perimeter. Usually, multiple sources tell CBS News the president or Republican nominee would have some sort of protective glass in the area, but it's unclear at this event what the extent was of the security around former President Trump.
And this on a day when, you know, the campaigns are in full swing. Just today, I just read that statement from the vice president. She had a campaign event in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia, that was indoors. These events have different levels of security based on the risk. There, of course, is more risk when you are outside. There is less ability to control all the elements.
Yeah.
We don't know exactly what happened, but we do know that an alleged assailant has been neutralized. We believe him, if it is a man, to have been up on a roof.
CBS reporting at this point is that it is a male, and we're having communication issues ourselves on this end, and this is a breaking news environment. So stay with us in this fluidity. But I want to make sure that our control room in New York tells me that we have someone on the phone right now who was an eyewitness to events. I'd like to be able to speak to him. I'm told his name is Josh Dresling. Josh, are you there, and can you hear all of us?
Yes, I'm here, and I can hear you.
Wonderful. Josh, can you give us a little context? Why were you at the rally today?
I was just an observer there to take some pictures and see the goings-on of, you know, this whole movement in our country, and then chaos kind of broke out.
You're a journalist, or why? You stood in the heat in an hour, and you went through security and at this campaign. You're a pretty interested photographer. Tell me a little bit about why you were there and what you saw.
I'm an amateur journalist. I mostly cover music and that kind of stuff. So this was more of a personal kind of adventure today. I was there and bared through the heat and went through the security with, you know, there was several thousands of people there, and it was very hot. And I made my way to basically the center of the crowd. You know, I was a little bit off to the right of the podium, about 50 yards away, standing there with, you know, shoulder to shoulder with many, many other people. And then I heard one pop, and then a second pop, pop, pop. And then there was like four or five that followed that. And it sounded like it came off from my right, which would have been Trump's left, where the video that you were showing, there was two people that were injured. I kind of think that these two people were in the line of fire, and that was the shots ricocheting on the like aluminum grandstand kind of seating there.
Yeah, we heard some of our eyewitness reporters were saying that they could see blood on those metal boards in the stadium area in the infrastructure. What are we talking about there, and who is that from?
I didn't personally see blood on the things, but I did see them, like paramedics and whether it was Secret Service or military or whatever, they carried two guys out of there. And actually, it's one of the videos you've been playing was a video that I had shot, but they were carrying him down the steps. And the one guy was able to exit on his own with some help from the other people. But another guy was being carried out, and he really didn't have any expression or anything. And they took them off to the side and laid them on the ground there, and were attending to them at that point. And actually, I'm seeing the video on your station right now.
That's your video that you shot?
Yeah, right there.
You filmed? Okay.
Correct.
And can you tell us if you saw the image that we have up right now of the person injured, did you, with the American flag cowboy boots, were you able to see anything there? What happened and the extent of those injuries?
No, that gentleman there with the flag around him, they took him and laid him in the grass there, and they eventually loaded him into an ambulance. I don't know what type of condition he was in at that point. I don't have any further information as far as that.
Okay, Josh, thank you. Adriana or Bob, did you have any questions?
I continued to hear from sources close to former President Trump, family members like Donald Trump Jr., top House Republicans, top Senate Republicans. They are all trying to give the family some space tonight as the family directly communicates with former President Trump. But those who have spoken to Donald Trump Jr. and other family members say former President Trump is reiterating to his closest advisors and family members that he is fine. But so many people on both sides of the aisle shook by this outbreak of violence in Pennsylvania. We are still trying to learn more about what exactly happened on stage. We have seen the images, we have seen the video, but what exactly happened in terms of the trajectory of the firearm discharge, if they were bullets, if there was some other type of event that happened in the vicinity of the stage. We heard from David McCormick, the Senate candidate, an eyewitness and sitting in the first row, watching the former president. The former president, though physically, personally defiant, we're told tonight by those closest to him, doing fine. Everyone in his circle shook. And you saw President Biden tonight weighing in, not just a statement on paper, but taking time in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, a place he rarely makes comments, to make a statement about how he believes this is a sick moment in American political history. Former President Trump fine, the shooter killed, another person killed. But you see a security failure, as Margaret Brennan and others have been detailing with their reporting. A.T. Smith and others have been discussing, to have someone, as CBS News has confirmed, on an elevated structure not that far, just hundreds of yards, mere hundreds of yards away from a former president of the United States, one of the most arguably protected people in the country. All former presidents of the United States have lifetime security from the United States Secret Service. A breach today in Butler, Pennsylvania. You can see the alleged suspect, who is now dead, on the roof of this structure not far from the crowd. And you had eyewitnesses now pouring out of this event in Butler, Pennsylvania, expressing astonishment that some of them saw this person on the roof, and shocked that the Secret Service ultimately did take action to take out the shooter, but of course not in time before something happened with an apparent firearm. The former president, his fist in the air. That photo, the photos in this image of Trump leaving the stage with his arm in the air, have circulated like wildfire among his closest supporters and allies. And it should be noted, many of Trump's supporters on social media tonight extremely angry. It's not going to reflect all of the verbatims of what we're seeing on social media from some of the Republicans around Trump. But to be clear, this is still a politically charged moment as much as it is a crime investigation and a security moment. Many people already in this country very angry at the other side, not just on a partisan red versus blue level, but we cover it all the time here at CBS News. There's a visceral nature to the emotions that pour out on the campaign trail.
And to that point, Bob Costa, I was just texting with Robert O'Brien, the former national security advisor to Donald Trump, who sent out a statement saying we've got to take the political temperature down. He and Mike Lee, the senator, issued this jointly. We've got to take the political temperature down, as evidenced by what happened in Pennsylvania today. So two key Republican Trump supporters calling for the rhetoric the political violence, the threats of it, to be lowered. That is in stark contrast to the head of the Trump campaign, one of the top Trump campaign officials you were reading statements from earlier. We are also looking at social media posts from other Republicans who are quite angry. Everyone should be angry that this security failure happened, but in a way that will raise further concern of someone misinterpreting things and perhaps carrying out further political violence. Law enforcement will want to lower this temperature. And words matter right now very much.
Well, we're entering, though, a period of extreme political charge with the Republican National Convention. We just heard from Major Garrett and Ed O'Keefe on the ground in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, because that begins on Monday.
We have on the phone another eyewitness from the event in Pennsylvania today. Her name is Melissa Schaffert. Melissa, I understand you heard some pops. You heard what we believe to be a series of gunshots. According to the log I see, there were at least 3 shots heard. How many did you hear?
I believe we heard 4 shots. It was very confusing because the shots did not sound like they were gunshots. It sounded like they were fireworks. And we were sitting about 50 feet from this giant green tractor, which is a combine. And I look over and I saw plumes of dust, but I thought, that's not what a gunshot sounds like. And then the chaos ensued and we all got down on the ground and I could actually hear bullets whizzing by. So I think the interesting thing to note when you're looking at all of the footage that is online and President Trump is directly in front of you on the screen, all of this action was taking place to the right of the president. So we were on the ground for about a minute. We all stood up, and that's when I posted quite a lengthy video on my Instagram that shows the exact area where we heard the gunshots coming from. Now, it's interesting to note that the gunshots obviously hit a large piece of equipment that was holding a giant speaker, and that cable snapped. And when that cable snapped, some kind of fluid came out of that machine. So there was fluid spraying, and there was a loud noise and equipment falling as well. So it was very chaotic.
I'm sure it is. I'm looking here at our producers logging the video playback that we've been watching here that's on your screen right now. And it looks like there was about a 30-second or so difference of time between when they heard shots and when the Secret Service said shooters down.
Yes.
That was a very quick reaction, it sounds like, including neutralizing the shooter.
Absolutely. We did not hear any shots that would have neutralized the shooter. I actually posted the video of the gentleman getting carried out of the stands that was hurt. And I also had a still shot of further back, them doing some kind of triage on someone. I had thought it was the shooter, but now as I'm watching the news, it looks like the shooter is on top of a building. I don't know if that is true or not. But I think it's also interesting to note that the Butler Farm Show area doesn't have good cellular service. So it was, really people did not know what was going on. And it wasn't until I drove home to Grove City, Pennsylvania, and turned on the news that I actually saw the president being hit with the bullet.
I believe, are you from Pennsylvania? Because I believe Pennsylvania is one of those states that allows concealed weapons to be carried.
Yes. I have a concealed carry permit.
Okay, so you know what a gunshot sounds like. Do you have any idea what kind of rifle this was?
If I had to guess, and again, I don't know if I was hearing a ricochet. I did not hear a rifle make a sound of a bullet leaving a rifle because I thought it was a firecracker. I would have bet money on it being a low caliber gun, a .22, but I could have been hearing a ricochet. I also could have been hearing that equipment being hit. So yes, I do have a concealed carry permit, and yes, I do have a good working knowledge of firearms, and I did not hear any shots. after that of this shooter being taken out either. So I don't know if there were silencers involved or anything like that.
Okay. Thank you for sharing your eyewitness account there. So very familiar with what guns sound like. Very interesting detail to know there from Melissa. I understand, Bob Costa, you are seeing Donald Trump himself make a statement now.
Yes, former President Donald Trump communicates on a social media platform, Truth Social. This is a verbatim of what he posted moments ago. I want to thank the United States Secret Service and all law enforcement for the rapid response on the shooting that just took place in Butler, Pennsylvania. Most importantly, I want to extend my condolences to the family of the person at the rally who was killed, and also to the family of another person that was badly injured. This is all verbatim from Trump's Truth Social. It is incredible that such an act can take place in our country. Nothing is known at this time about the shooter, who is now dead. CBS News has confirmed that. More verbatim. I was shot with a bullet that pierced the upper right part of my ear. He says on his Truth Social, he believes he was shot, quote, with a bullet that pierced the upper part of my right ear. I knew immediately that something was wrong and that I heard a whizzing sound, shots, and immediately felt the bullet ripping through the skin. Much bleeding took place, so I realized then what was happening. God bless America, end quote. This is a statement moments ago from former President Trump on his Truth Social media account. He said nothing is known at this time about the shooter who is now dead. He believes he was shot, he says on his Truth Social, with a bullet that pierced the upper part of my right ear, as he put it. And he said he heard a whizzing sound, shots, and felt what he calls a bullet ripping through the skin. CBS News is still reporting out the exact details of what unfolded on stage in terms of the firearm, what happened on top of that building, hundreds of yards away where the shooter was, who was ultimately killed, was seen by many eyewitnesses. We're trying to figure out what exactly happened on stage when a firearm was discharged. But that is what former President Trump, Margaret, said tonight on his Truth Social account. His version, his statement of what just happened. As we have said, his family believes he is fine. They are talking to him. He is communicating with his aides and his family members tonight. He also just posted this on Truth Social, ending with God bless America. He said much bleeding took place, whizzing sounds, shots. He felt something ripping through his skin.
Well, he is always colorful and graphic in describing things. And for him to say it was a bullet that pierced the upper part of his ear then would seem to contradict some of the initial reporting that it was perhaps shrapnel or glass that ricocheted and caused that trickle of blood.
This is his statement. This is his statement. We are still reporting out this story, and part of that report is detailing what the person who was involved in this incident, former President Donald Trump, has to say. His Truth Social statement is like us talking to an eyewitness or talking to someone at the phone who was there, but he was directly involved. It is clear former President Trump was injured in part with a firearm that was discharged from a building hundreds of yards away. He was visibly bleeding from the ear on his face as he left the stage, raised his arm in defiance as he left Secret Service on top of him. You can see the blood there on the upper part of his ear, a droplet of blood dripping along his cheek. So clearly something struck him in that area. He says on Truth Social tonight, he believes it was a bullet. We are still reporting out this story at CBS News. Part of it is his account as he sees it.
I am told that our CBS colleague from KDKA, Jennifer Barrasso, is on the line right now. She is outside the scene of the rally. Jennifer, what did you witness?
Hi there. So I have a witness right now. He had just showed up at the Trump rally just a short time before it started, and he actually tells me that he saw the shooter on the building, and his name is Benjamin Macer. Thank you so much for staying around. Just take me back. What were you doing before the shooting happened, and then what did you see and hear?
I was just standing there like everybody else, waiting for Trump, and as Trump started, I noticed two officers that were looking for something or somebody. I was looking around myself and seeing a guy on top of one of the buildings go in between one building to the next, and went and told the officer that he was up there. And when I went back to my spot, I heard that people could still see the person from where they were standing. So I checked that out, and I went back to tell the officer that if he came over there, he could see them. And when I turned my back is when the shots started, and then it took me a second or two to figure out exactly what it was, and then it was just getting out of there and helping some other person out with her child, and we got out, and that was the end of that, and I went and left, and that was all.
So the viewers have some perspective. Behind us, okay, is the American Glass Research Company, okay? Can you kind of describe the building behind us, the tan building right there? Can you take a look at it? And then where was the shooter exactly?
There's more buildings behind the tan building that we can see, and we were back there, and there's two or three buildings behind that, and he was on both of them. I assume both of them when he went on that small section from one to the other, and that was where I last saw him, was the end of his day.
So this man was able to basically climb to the next building, and you told law enforcement, hey, there's a guy over there.
Correct. I don't know how he got up there. I don't know any of that, but I definitely saw him up there, and officer, and that was all I know.
Did you get a good look at the shooter?
No, I don't know. I don't know anything about him other than I believe he had a gray shirt on, but that's about as much as I know.
And then what happened after the shots were fired? Can you describe just the panic and just the fear I'm sure you felt?
There was definitely panic. We started out of there, and I went away a little bit and noticed there was a lady trying to get out of there with her two chairs and her little child, and I helped her. I carried the child out and her chairs for her, and we got her out, and she said that her dad was still up there, and told me what he was wearing. So I went back up and found her dad and told him where he could find his daughter, and then that was it. I left and got myself out of there.
So the building where the shooter was, if you look to your left, it's that light tan building that we're seeing to the left of that brown building, correct?
Correct. Back behind the couple of trees.
And any idea just where he was positioned in terms of shooting at the former president?
He was just on the roof. That he would have been almost parallel to the stage. I couldn't see the president from where I was, but I knew where the stage was.
So you were telling me that you actually told law enforcement, hey, there is a guy over there.
Correct.
And what was their response again?
He just took that information and went towards the building looking for the person. And I'm not sure. Like I said, when I turned around is when the shots were, so I don't know what happened with that. And then obviously my attention was directed somewhere else.
Anything, you said you're a local here. What do you know about this company here?
I don't know anything about American Glass Research. I assume they do glass research, but that's all I know.
And then another witness I interviewed, he just is baffled, just confused how, with all of the police here, the Secret Service, how this could have happened. Just what are you wondering right now?
I don't have much wonder. The shooter was outside of the secured fence. He never would have went through security. So he was just far enough away, and it's an unfortunate thing that happened, and that's all.
Did you see him get shot?
No, like I said, my back was turned at that point, so I didn't see any of it.
Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. So there you have it. So the witness here just basically saying that he flagged law enforcement, saying that he saw this guy and that it appeared that they were looking for someone, and he then saw the guy on the roof. And just many people that I'm talking to just wondering how this could have happened.
Many people wondering exactly that very question right now. And no doubt, since this is a Secret Service investigation, we will be hearing more from them on those details as they get them. We do have a statement from the Secret Service at this time, and I want to share it with everyone who's tuning in at this hour. The Secret Service is saying today in Butler, Pennsylvania, at approximately 6:15 p.m., a suspected shooter fired multiple shots, no specific number listed here, toward the stage from an elevated position, as our eyewitnesses have been sharing with our audience, outside of the rally venue. The Secret Service personnel neutralized the shooter, who's now deceased. Secret Service quickly responded with protective measures, and former President Trump is safe. One spectator was killed, as we've been reporting, and 2 spectators were critically injured. This incident is currently under investigation, and the Secret Service has notified the FBI. So the Secret Service confirming from the federal level what our eyewitnesses have been saying in terms of the numbers of those injured, that the shooter was from an elevated position, and notably that those shots were taken from outside of the rally venue. That is going to be a key part of the investigation here, why the security perimeter didn't include that area, how the shooter knew and could get to that elevated position and be able to take the shots that came this close to the 45th president of the United States.
And to that point, Margaret, we have new reporting from Nicole Skanga that there is now planning currently underway to expand the perimeter at the Republican National Convention to create a buffer zone around the event. And at 8:42 p.m. Eastern tonight, former President Trump issued a statement on Truth Social. He said, quote, "I want to thank the United States Secret Service and all law enforcement for their rapid response on the shooting that just took place in Butler, Pennsylvania. Most importantly, I want to extend my condolences to the family of the person at the rally who was killed." And also, and he said that he recounted, in his view, whizzing sounds, quote, shots, and immediately felt the bullet ripping through the skin. Much bleeding took place, he says, end quote, on his Truth Social account.
And Bob, you're talking about those changing security protocols. I want to go out to Milwaukee, where Major Garrett is already on the ground ahead of the Republican National Convention, a high security event. Major, I have to imagine it's getting even more protection at this hour.
Well, Margaret, let me share what's happening right now. I'm about 2 blocks away from the arena where the Republican National Convention will be held. It's just over my shoulder. You can't see it over my shoulder, but trust me, it's 2 blocks that way. Already, the security perimeter is being built around that convention site, multiple blocks in every direction. As I reported earlier on our special coverage, Reince Priebus, the chairman of this Republican National Convention, was not, when he spoke to me about an hour ago, aware of any changes yet in the security protocols here in Milwaukee. He said he would not be surprised if, in fact, the existing very extensive security protocols and perimeters would either be hardened or extended, but nothing had been relayed to him yet. I just want to tell you what's gone on in the last half hour here. We're, like I said, about 2 blocks from the convention arena. I've seen far more police cars circling this area in the last half hour than I did in the first half hour that I arrived here, coming straight from the airport. We've also seen 2 helicopters circling this part of downtown Milwaukee. I wouldn't say that is dramatically out of the ordinary for preparations for an event of this size and security, but we can't pretend that it's not happening and not noticeable. It is noticeable and meant to be noticed. That's what's happening right here in Milwaukee. A couple of other things I can tell you, Margaret. Talking to those in the Trump inner circle about the events that will begin here tomorrow. I've talked to 2 sources within the Trump campaign who tell me that already the speeches that were prepared are being rewritten, and the rhetoric will reflect this event, and many Republicans who take the stage, not just tomorrow night, but every night in the 4 nights of this event, will talk about, from their vantage point, Democrats, the left, liberals, using very harsh language about the former president, language they will assert cannot be separated from this event in Butler, Pennsylvania. That is probably something most people would assume, but I have confirmation that those speeches are being redrafted with this event in mind. And already I've been told that the former president had soft intentions before this event in Butler, Pennsylvania, to be at this convention each and every night in some capacity or another. I've been told to expect him to be visible tomorrow night here.
No doubt. Major Garrett there just underscoring again that they have extended the security perimeter around the Republican National Convention, which is set to get underway tomorrow in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in light of the incident that just happened. It is the top of the hour, so I want to just set the table for anyone who is tuning in. It's 9 o'clock here on the East Coast, 6 o'clock on the West Coast. And we just want to update you with a quick recap of the breaking news that we've been covering for the past few hours. We know that multiple shots were fired at a campaign rally today for Donald Trump in the key swing state of Pennsylvania. The former president of the United States and the presumptive Republican nominee for president has been injured, but Secret Service tonight says he is safe. He himself has issued statements to that effect, talking about what he has described as minor injuries to his ear. CBS has learned from law enforcement sources that the shooter was killed by a Secret Service counter-assault team. Sources say the shooter, who used a rifle, was acting from outside of security perimeter, something that Secret Service themselves confirmed. Secret Service also said the shooter was standing on an elevated platform. We know from some reporting that that was a shed. A rally attendee who was there to support Donald Trump was also killed. The former president posted about his own injuries on social media. He said he wanted to extend his condolences to the family of the person at the rally who was killed, and also to the family of another person that was badly injured. We actually heard from Secret Service that it was two people, or more than one person, who have been critically injured. And we will try to track their recovery as we report out this story. It is still in the early moments. And I want to get to Scott MacFarlane, our CBS reporter who was on the ground covering the rally for CBS News. Scott, when really the unimaginable happened, given how high security procedures are at a rally like this.
It's a profound failure of enormous magnitude in securing this event. When you're on the rafters inside this rally site, you can see a car dealership. You can see office buildings in the distance. They're in your line of sight. But for everybody who came in, the thousands of people who are here today, you had to go through a magnetometer. You had to get wanded. Your bag had to be searched. They opened the zippers. They checked everything. They looked at your water bottles. Everybody who went through those magnetometers was screened. Yet something like this happened in America at an event secured by the U.S. Secret Service. I can tell you from being here, being in the middle of it, gunshots don't sound like they do in the movies. They just don't, at least not these. We all conflated them initially for firecrackers. Some of us are kicking ourselves for taking so long to duck for cover, and you get a sense now from all of the shootings across America, all the tragedies, why there is a fog of war during them. It's so disorienting. It's so disabling. You lose your senses. I can't tell you how many there were. I lost count because there was a fog of war going on. A lot of us jumped beneath the nearest thing we could find, chairs. We were beneath the press rafters. Things were hitting us in the head. People were running into each other. There was this collision of humanity. But I also can tell you that among those in the crowd who were last to leave, they were in a holding pattern here for hours. They just now have been freed to go. Overhead, there are still helicopters circling. I saw ambulances arrive minutes after the former president was taken away, which gave us an indication there were more medical needs on site. We also saw a different helicopter, potentially a medevac, land twice within minutes of the former president leaving. This is an absolute horror and trauma for those who lived through it, the thousands of supporters of the former president. And I'll tell you something else. Some in the crowd turned on us. Heckled us, made gestures at us, approached the police line or the barricade they had near the media rafters. There were some, though, also, Margaret, who were heckling us earlier in the day, as often happens at these events. A couple of them came up to exchange good words when this was all over, to check on how we were doing. This is the mutual trauma for everybody involved.
No doubt, Scott, and I know you're still digesting and processing what you just lived through, and we are very glad that you are safe, along with our two other reporters, Jake Rosen and Olivia Rinaldi, and the rest of the CBS team. Bob Costa is here still on set with me. And Bob, you've been reading to us the details from the former president's statement describing his injuries. What more do we know?
Well, we know that in former President Trump's inner circle tonight, there is shock and there is also growing outrage, including from those who are potentially going to be named in the coming days to be former President Trump's running mate. A United States Senator, J.D. Vance, 39 years old, from Ohio, a Republican who is seen as one of the final candidates, a front runner to be named as Trump's running mate, said that, quote, the central premise of the Biden campaign is that former President Trump is an authoritarian fascist who must be stopped at all costs. That rhetoric led directly to President Trump's attempted assassination. I share that, Margaret, with you because this is someone who might be named in the coming days as Trump's running mate. He's a very influential United States senator. And so we're seeing tonight on a personal level, I texted with Donald Trump Jr. They're speaking with their father. He's issuing a statement on Truth Social about how he felt bullets around him. He had blood on his face. He was whisked off stage. This comes also before the Republican National Convention. That's not going to be canceled. There's no sign tonight from our reporting in Milwaukee on the ground that that's going to stop in any way. They're going to expand the perimeter. But you're seeing so many Republicans tonight. And you also see, just again, former President Trump is fine based on our conversations with his closest advisors and families. And I want to just read a part of his statement from 8:42 tonight on Truth Social. He said, nothing is known at this time about the shooter who is now dead. I was shot with a bullet that pierced the upper part of my right ear. I knew immediately that something was wrong and that I heard a whizzing sound, shots, and immediately felt the bullet ripping through the skin. Much bleeding took place, so I realized then what was happening. He closes with God Bless America, and we saw him raise his hand in the air defiantly, blood on his face as he left the stage.
He is recovering from these injuries now. This was a traumatic event, no doubt, for him. But I did notice there was no call for lowering the temperature, condemning all political violence, and really trying to signal to his supporters as well not to retaliate or to have any kind of escalation here. I just am looking at these statements.
There's a belief in his inner circle that he's under siege after being attacked at his rally. And so there's a lot of every text message I'm getting.
Will exactly digest it, like you're saying.
I mean, every single text message, literally every single one from Trump sources is outraged and shocked. And so that is certainly the mood inside the highest ranks of the Republican Party, speaking to CBS News tonight. You did see President Biden come out to Rehoboth, Delaware, and call the moment sick.
And we want to play that actually right now, Bob. Let's listen to the president.
I've been thoroughly briefed by all the agencies in the federal government as to the situation, based on what we know now. I have tried to get a hold of Donald. He's with his doctors. Apparently he's doing well. I plan on talking to them shortly, I hope, when I get back to the telephone. Look, there's no place in America for this kind of violence. It's sick. It's sick. It's one of the reasons why we have to unite this country. We cannot allow for this to be happening. We cannot be like this. We cannot condone this. And I want to thank the Secret Service and all the agencies, including the state agencies, that have engaged in making sure that the people and we have more detail to come relative to other people maybe injured in the audience. I don't have all that detail. We'll make that available to you. I may be able to come back a little later tonight, but we'll put out a statement if I'm not able to if it's not convenient for you all.
That was a statement, as you see there, from President Biden calling for calm, saying he reached out to Donald Trump himself, hopes to reach him sometime this evening to check on his competitors' well-being. We want to bring in CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe, who follows the Biden campaign very closely, but is also on the political trail right now. He's out in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Ed, what do you know at this hour?
The president remains at his home in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, Margaret, but the protective press pool that tracks his movements and travels with him for incidents just like what unfolded today, or the possibility of them, has not yet been cleared for the night, which means we could hear again from the president. There could be a decision made to move him back to Washington tonight. We await word on that from those traveling with him in Delaware. But in that statement, condemning the violence, calling it sick, saying it's one of the reasons we have to unite, and the fact that he said from the beginning of that statement that he's trying to speak with Trump tonight was a signal not only to Americans but to the world that at least American political leaders are trying to get in touch and unite tonight in the aftermath of this violence. A few other things to convey here and to remind people. We are in Milwaukee ahead of the Republican convention. It is set to begin on Monday with the formal nomination of Trump and his running mate, who we still don't know who that person is. It's supposed to happen Monday afternoon. There are events beginning tomorrow. This is classified already, has been for years, as a top national security event on par with inaugurations, the Super Bowl, the Democratic National Convention, and other big, large events. So there are thousands of federal, state, and local law enforcement here in this city deployed across Wisconsin. As we were flying in this afternoon, there were about a dozen or so law enforcement officers. We never quite determined for which agency, but they were flying in here as a group to deploy in assistance to the Milwaukee Police Department. In the airport, we found dozens of others from other agencies. Some appear to be from Texas, for example. There are about a dozen cities across the country who've deployed police officers, other security personnel here to help. That's standard. It's happened. There may be more in the coming days, but for now, they've been part of planning for years. We saw them riding around on bicycles earlier today.
Any agency can sell you your next travel nursing contract. Health Carousel is a careers company that treats you like an employee and invests in you, your goals, and your career in a way that you haven't experienced before.
The Biden campaign has decided to immediately begin postponing television and digital communication across the country on television, in your social media stream. It may take a few hours or days for it to all filter out. But as of now, the Biden campaign isn't